What's going on, everyone? It's already round 4. We're headed to Glendale. So today we're going to do our race day updates and get you guys all up to speed on everything you need to know, from injury updates to the track conditions, what we learned at press day. We're going to get you guys all up to speed and hit some of these talking points as we head into the night show. So let's get into it. All right, so first we're going to go over our injury updates. Thankfully, we did pretty good at Anaheim 2. We didn't have a whole lot of new major injuries. So starting off in the 250 class, we did get an update on Ryder D. He didn't race last weekend, but now we know that he suffered a fractured radial. So basically he broke his arm, but he also broke a rib and he had some abdominal injuries. So he did have to have surgery on that abdominal injury. It sounds like the whole thing was pretty scary. So definitely glad that he's doing well now. He's recovering from surgery. Definitely don't know exactly when he'll be back, but as of right now, it's just good to know that he's at least doing okay. Then we also got word that Viney is also going to need surgery. He ended up dislocating and injuring his shoulder a couple of rounds back. He did not race last weekend, and now he is going in for that shoulder surgery. So don't look for him to be back anytime soon. And then as far as the Triumph rider Stylez Robertson, we know that it sounds like he jammed up his wrist when he was trying to jump that quad a couple of weeks ago. He didn't get to race last weekend, and there's been some speculation of whether he's going to be out for the remainder of the season due to surgery and things like this, but it sounds like the team's pretty optimistic that he'll be able to come back after the break. This round in Glendale is the last of the West Coast swing, and we're going to take a break for the start of the East Coast series. So what it sounds like is he'll be able to rejoin the series when we head to Arlington and the West Coast picks back up. And then as far as Ty Masterpool, the speculation is pretty much the same thing. He did end up breaking his finger when he went down on that same section. He won't be able to be racing with us tonight, but it sounds like he'll probably be back in a few weeks. As far as his pro circuit teammate Garrett Marchbanks, the picture remains a lot less clear. As of the time of me recording this, we don't even have real confirmation from the team on exactly what's going on, but it doesn't sound like he's going to be racing this weekend. If there's some sort of better update between now and when I upload the video, I'll definitely post it in the video. But what it sounds like is he's dealing with a shoulder injury, and that's really all we have, not a lot of specifics. And that is why we have Drew Adams making his debut last weekend, and he'll be with us again here in Glendale. So look for that. It was cool to see him riding. He did pretty good, especially considering the tough conditions in the main event. He was able to get right in there in the top 10, no problem. It'll be cool to see him get 3 gate drops and see what he can do. But anyways, to wrap up the 250 injury report, obviously we know that Joe Shimoda is still dealing with those finger injuries. He hasn't been able to ride during the week or anything like that. It is on his clutch hand, so that is tough, but he did say it doesn't really affect his clutch. He uses his other fingers for that, but it is definitely affecting his grip strength. Hopefully he can just get through tonight safely and get into this break and get recovered. He's still clinging to a hope of being in this championship fight, so as long as he can get through safely and just not lose a ton of points, he should be all right. And then moving over to the 450 class, Christian Craig is still coming off of that torn ACL. He's not going to be racing this weekend, but it sounds like we might get to see him next weekend. He is back on the bike, and it sounds like he'll be returning soon, possibly as soon as next weekend. And then I just also want to give a shout out to Kyle Chisholm, who went down at the start of the race last weekend, and Dylan Ferrandis had to do some special maneuvering to get around him. So that's 2 weeks in a row that Dylan Ferrandis had to really dodge a bullet right at the beginning of a lap. Shout out to him as well, as he was able to avoid both of those incidents. But anyways, Chisholm ended up bruising his heel. Sounds like he's pretty sore, but he is going to give it a go this weekend. And then the biggest injury news this week is that Jorge Prado ended up going down. He overshot the quad at Anaheim 2, and as a result of that, he got flung into the catch net. And not only did he dislocate his shoulder, but he also did some damage. He tore some ligaments and things like that. So he's going to be having to have shoulder surgery, and he will not be returning to Supercross this season. Really hate to see that for Jorge, because he definitely was starting to get, the ball rolling in Supercross. It was pretty widely accepted that the goal in Supercross was just to get experience, log the laps, stay out of trouble, stay off the ground, and then in the next couple of years, you could probably get a lot better and start contending for podiums and race wins and things like that. Well, it seems like he should still be able to make a swing at the motocross championship, which is probably what they're more focused on anyways, at least this year. It does really suck to see that he'll have to miss the majority of the Supercross season, because that's a lot of experience that he really needed and he's going to be missing out on. Anyways, we're going to move on to our 250 top contenders. So at the top this week, we still have Julien Beaumer. He was able to ride very well last weekend. He was definitely the second best rider behind Haiden Deegan, and he was able to hold on to the red plate. So shout out to him. I definitely wasn't expecting him to come out this hard at the beginning of the season. He's only left 6 points on the board all season long, and he's been on the podium every single round. So he looks really good, really consistent, and really confident. It seemed like Haiden Deegan was definitely trying to rattle him mentally last weekend, and from my perspective, it doesn't seem like it really worked. I cannot wait to see 3 gate drops with these two guys going at it. Obviously, there's other people who are going to be in contention as well, but it's undeniable that Haiden Deegan and Julien Beaumer are definitely starting to develop a rivalry, so it should be a lot of fun to keep an eye on that. And then behind him, we have to talk about Haiden Deegan, who definitely came out swinging at Anaheim too, and he's definitely making a lot of noise. Some people saw that he uploaded that video on his Instagram about Julien Beaumer, and that was up there for a little bit. He ended up taking it down because it was a little bit too controversial, or whatever his reason might be. But one thing's for sure, there's definitely some back and forth going on between these guys. I think it's a lot of fun to watch, and I definitely think tonight's track is going to at least be a little bit more up Hayden's alley. To me, it looks pretty sandy and wide open, and that seems like that's how he likes to ride. It'll be interesting to see if one of these guys can get in front of him and try to hold him off, or if he just blows by. One thing's for sure though, he has to make sure that he doesn't make any critical mistakes and end up going down on the start or in one of the mains, just have a bad result, because he could end up being the best rider and winning 2 of the mains and then have a mistake and blow one of the mains and end up still losing points. Then behind him, we have Jordan Smith, and he's really still right in the thick of this points battle. We saw him send it on the last lap through the whoop section, and he ended up going down at the end of the main event last weekend. But one thing I just want to mention about that kind of caught my attention, if you look a little bit closer than just on the surface, as he's crashing into the sand section, his bike kind of starts to fall down on top of him, and you can just see the veteran-like awareness and also a lot of strength that he uses to immediately put his weight back into the bike to keep it from falling on top of him, because if he didn't do that right at that moment and really brace himself, he would have been stuck under that bike, and he definitely would have been finishing off of the top 5. So while he did make a mistake that cost him the podium, he was able to remount and still get a top 5. And I thought that was really important because you can't even see the bike coming, and as soon as he feels it starting to tip over, he braced himself and got out from under there. And I just thought that was a little tidbit that probably was easy to overlook, and it just shows that there's so many little things that these guys are so good at in this sport. And then behind him, we have Joe Shimoda, who we already talked a little bit about in the injury report. And I just want to mention that he's only 8 points behind Haiden Deegan. So if you guys are looking at Haiden Deegan as the real title threat, then you got to look at Joe Shimoda as still in this thing, at least right now. So can he try to maintain that gap, keep it where he's still within striking distance as we leave Glendale? It's definitely going to be really tough for him. They're going to be racing a total of 30 minutes plus 3 laps. Obviously, they're split into 3 main events. So hopefully the shorter mains will be a little bit easier on Joe, but I would have to imagine that extended time out on the track, putting in race laps, is probably going to wear on him. If he can at least salvage a top 5, I think that would be absolutely fantastic. And if he is able to heal up during this break and come out swinging like he did at Anaheim 1, maybe he can still stay in this championship fight. Then right behind Joe Shimoda, we have Cole Davies. And Cole Davies is probably my biggest surprise of the season so far. I definitely got to watch him race Supercross Futures, and I knew that he was going to be good, but I would be lying if I said that I thought he was going to be this good. The guy looks like he could honestly win a main event at this point. He looks cool, calm, collected, composed, and in control of his motorcycle, and he doesn't look like he's running out of steam at the end of the main events either. I really like the personality that he brings when he's on the podium or just in any interview really. And the thing that I think is most important this week is it's worth mentioning that he seems to be absolutely by far the best starter in this group here. I constantly see him hole-shotting the practice starts, hole-shotting the heat races. He's always out in front or near the front. And one thing we know about Triple Crowns is that starts are super important. It is a little bit tougher to come through the field as the main events are only 10 minutes long. So if he consistently puts himself at the front of these main events, could he win tonight? I think it'd be foolish to think that he can't. Not saying he's my favorite pick, but I definitely think he's in the mix. And then the last 250 guy I want to talk about is Coty Schock. So I think Coty Schock is a real contender this weekend as well, but for different reasons. We've seen him be very consistent, very smooth, nothing flashy and nothing like scary. It was really cool to see him get that heat race, so we know that he can run up front, we know he can get a start, and we know that he can stay composed. Obviously, he did win a heat race last year as well, and he did end up finishing third in the championship last year. Right now, he's all the way back in 6th, but he's still within striking distance of these guys right in front of him in the championship, so you know that he wants to move up, and you know he has confidence on his side after that strong season last season and that strong ride last weekend. If I was Coty Schock, I'd be looking at this Triple Crown as my opportunity to go ahead and try to get on the podium, and I think you could definitely argue that he is a strong contender for the podium this weekend. Does Beaumer and Deegan get tangled up? Do they go down? Do they start something? Do they get locked in their own battle? Does Jordan Smith make one of his typical errors? And can Joe Shimoda ride strong in all 3 mains? If any of those things go wrong, or if all of them go wrong, next thing you know, Coty Schock is on or near the top of the podium. Next, let's move on to the 450 class. We got a few more guys to talk about in this class because it is so deep, so I'm going to try to get through it as quickly as possible. But anyways, at the top, we have Roczen. He's going to be rocking the red plate. And one thing that is worth mentioning about Roczen having a red plate, and I think this is absolutely a tragedy, but it's got to be mentioned. Roczen is now only the 2nd rider in Supercross history to ever have the red plate 8 different seasons in the Premier Supercross class. And who was the only other rider to ever do that? Well, you guessed it, the guy who has 7 championships, Jeremy McGrath. Now, what's the difference between Roczen and Jeremy McGrath? Well, one has 7 championships and one has 0. I really hate this for Kenny, but it does look like he is probably going to be the best rider to ever race Supercross that doesn't get a Premier title. I would love to see him get it this year. That would be an absolutely amazing story, and I do think he's a contender for the title, but there's just no way that I can count him as the favorite for the title right now. Either way though, it is so cool to see him get to run the red plate. Hopefully he can hold on to it. And I think he's in a great position to do that this weekend. We did see him win this race last year, and that was when it was not a Triple Crown. And one thing we know about Roczen is that he comes off absolutely explosive in these first few laps, and he hits it really hard, really strong. So he knows how to have that early race intensity, which is exactly what you need in a Triple Crown. So if he can just get 3 good starts, we know that he likes this track, this dirt, and we know that he feels good in this stadium. So the circumstances surrounding his situation are definitely good, and there is a high chance of probability that he could at least hold on to the red plate after this weekend. I think it would be the coolest thing ever if he's able to get the Triple Crown win with the red plate on his bike. But either way, we're going to have to keep our eye on Roczen. And then behind him in the championship, we have Sexton. So my question with Sexton is he feeling any better than he was last week? We heard that he kind of started going down with that sickness towards the end of the week. And for the most part, it sounds like everyone in the class who has been getting sick is still feeling lingering effects the following week. So considering that he got sick at the end of last week, is he still having lingering effects this week, and will that affect him? You have to consider that these guys are going to be racing significantly longer than they normally would. There's going to be 36 minutes of main event racing plus 3 laps. So yes, they are only 12 minutes each, but if you're not feeling well, that is a lot of racing throughout the night, and that could definitely start to wear on you. He's positioned himself well in the championship right now, and now is the time to capitalize. So will he be able to do that? Then right behind him, we have Jett Lawrence, and Jett did exactly what we expected him to do at the beginning of the season last weekend. So does he carry that into this weekend? We haven't seen him get his typical really good starts this year. He's been getting some good starts. So can he get some really good starts and make this Triple Crown easy on himself? Or does he get a couple of bad starts and make it really interesting to watch? Then tied with him, we have Eli Tomac. So Eli definitely looks really good. We've seen him do really well in Glendale. The last time that there was a Triple Crown in Glendale, he absolutely killed it. This is definitely a Tomac style track, wide open, long rhythm lanes. So can he get back to those good starts that he was having? He definitely blew his start in the main event last weekend, but that seemed more due to the weather. And thankfully the weather is good this weekend, and not only that, but there is a roof over the stadium if they choose to close it. So it's really just going to come down to Tomac's normal starting technique, which looks to be absolutely on point. Hard to bet against him this weekend. If he can start in front of Jett, I really just don't see Jett passing him unless he hits some crazy like quad line or something that nobody else is doing. Then believe it or not, right behind Tomac in the championship, we have Webb. So it seems like Cooper Webb has not really had a great season. We saw him kind of struggling last weekend, but at the end of the day, he's only 10 points back in the championship, right behind Eli Tomac. So kind of weird, but one thing we know about Cooper Webb is that he tends to struggle in Glendale. It seems like he doesn't do as well on the fast-paced, wide-open Supercross tracks. There's a lot less turns on this track than normal. And we know that Cooper Webb likes to get into the turn and get out of there, and he does good on these tight, ruddy tracks, which is exactly what Glendale is not. But the one good thing about this is that it is a Triple Crown, so that could be what helps him kind of even things out a little bit, is that he can go out there, get his good starts, use his racecraft, hold these guys off, and try to at least get a top 5 finish. Don't forget last year that he ended up winning a Triple Crown by going 2-2-5. So that was the first Triple Crown of last year, which was at Anaheim. But regardless, he knows how to get it done at Triple Crowns, and clearly he knows how to hang around in the championship. So if he can at least keep it near the front and stay in this championship battle as we head away from the West Coast, maybe we see a much better Cooper Webb as we head east, and all of a sudden he is a real force to be reckoned with in this championship. And then right behind him, we have Jason Anderson, and I have to wonder where Anderson would be in this title fight if he wasn't so sick 2 weeks ago. But either way, he bounced back really well at Anaheim too. It looked like he was definitely a race win contender, at least at the start of that main event. So really cool to see that out of Jason. He definitely does well on hard pack tracks, so maybe he can do good this weekend. And either way, it'll be a lot of fun to see him mixing it up with these guys. He's only 13 points back in the championship, definitely still in this thing. Even though he had a catastrophic finish in San Diego, he's still right there, so definitely keep your eye on him. And then the last guy we're going to talk about in the 450 class is going to be Hunter Lawrence, who has bounced back nicely after that rough start to the season. Definitely not as much of a bounce back as his brother Jett, but he has managed 2 top 5s since then. He definitely doesn't look quite like a top 5 rider, but he's getting good starts and he's putting himself in a good position. And I have to say, he finished off the race a lot stronger than I was expecting last weekend at Anaheim too. I was expecting him to fade back a little bit more than he did, and if anything, he actually kind of went back towards the front. So that was definitely encouraging to see for Hunter and the Honda team. If he can just get good starts, he could definitely be a podium threat this weekend. Before we talk about what we saw in press day, let's just talk a little bit about the track. So I really like the track design this weekend. The first 2 straightaways are just flat straightaways off of the start, and that helps the guys get time to separate, settle in as they head into the long rhythm sections. Really appreciate that. Seems like it would be a lot safer. And then it's really cool to see these long stretched out rhythm lanes where these guys can really make up and gain some time on each other, and also a lot of 180 bull turns. So it should be a track where passes are relatively easy to be made, at least compared to other tracks we've raced this year. And that is really important on a Triple Crown where the races are a lot shorter than usual. But anyways, with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about what we saw at press day. So at press day, it was pretty cool to see that there was a good rider turnout. Lots of top name riders were out there, and we got to get a good look at the track. There were a few cool little tidbits that I picked up from some of the interviews, and also a couple things about the track. So the first thing I want to mention is that according to Joe Shimoda's mechanic, it sounds like his hand is really not healing at all right now. And that's really not surprising, given the fact that he's still racing with broken fingers. But I just thought it was worth mentioning. You would think maybe after a couple weeks that he would feel a little bit better, but it sounds like he's not really feeling any better at all. So definitely some concerns when it comes to his fingers and being able to do 3 main events. Obviously they are a little bit shorter, but in general, it's a lot of riding in one night. Also, I wanted to talk about Aaron Plessinger really quickly. So we did see him kind of crash into Dylan Ferrandis at Anaheim 2, and then we also saw him crash and not be able to finish the week before that. So we haven't really got to see him much this year, but according to Aaron Plessinger, he actually does feel pretty good and he is excited to come out at this Triple Crown. So keep your eye on him. If he can get some good starts, he definitely could be a top 5 guy. And then another interesting thing worth mentioning is that Cooper Webb did do some testing specifically trying to find some more traction on these hard pack tracks. And he said that personally, he doesn't really like to change bike setup. According to Cooper Webb, he never changed his 250 setup on pretty much his whole 250 career. He ran like the same bike setup everywhere, both motocross and supercross. And it sounds like he's been stuck on last year's setup and not really willing to let that setup go. The team pretty much tried to persuade him to try something new, and it sounds like he ended up trying that on Wednesday and he liked it. So he's going to give that a shot this weekend. Like we talked about, this is not his strongest track, so just try to get through this weekend with some solid results. But keep your eye on Cooper Webb. He could be an underdog. For one, we know he's really gritty, and he did make a bike change, and according to Cooper Webb, that's really not something that he likes to do. So the fact that he's willing to do that and that he liked it enough to stick with it could be interesting to watch. All right, now I just quickly want to talk about the track and a couple of things that I noticed about press day. So not a lot of crazy lines going on here. If you guys look, they're going to be coming across the start straight this way, hitting this wall jump, and then going through here like that, just to give you an idea of the direction. So pretty much the guys are just going triple through here, and then hitting the Supercross triple. Everything's normal there. And then it looks like probably what's going to happen on the next straightaway is they're going to go double in, and then triple again. Really nothing too crazy going on there. Now, because of the whip section, we did not get to see what they're going to do here. But what I want to draw your attention to is right here, there's actually an inside berm. Not something you typically see. So my prediction is that these guys are probably going to come in here, hit the inside berm, roll this roller, and then triple out. Or potentially go around the outside and then try to go on-off on this table. So keep your eye on that. That could be an interesting place to maybe gain or lose some time, or it could just be kind of meaningless. Hard to say for sure because we didn't really get to see the guys hit that or this straightaway either. I'm really excited to see how that straightaway works out. Probably going to be the main rhythm section in my opinion. But what could be another really big difference maker, and the main thing I want to talk about right now, is this straightaway right here after the finish line. So if you guys count the number of these roller looking things here, there's enough for you to go either double and then triple all the way through with another double at the end where you just kind of land a flat, or you could also go triple single. Now it looks like maybe at the end these 4 rollers could potentially be quadded. We haven't seen anybody do it yet, so keep your eye out for that. I do kind of expect either Jett or Eli or one of these guys to pull the trigger. They're pretty much evenly spaced and evenly height, so you could definitely potentially go triple and then just give it everything you got and go quad out. That would be a huge time saver compared to the other line that these guys are doing, which would be double in and then go triple and then a double out. So lots of time to potentially be made up there. Keep your eye out for that. With all of that being said, I really appreciate everyone's support on the channel lately. I'm trying to continue to grow this channel, and I'm trying to go to as many races and bring you more coverage as much as I can. But even when we're not at the races, we're definitely going to try to break things down for you. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.